What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm Matt over at DSR, and today I'm at Whole Shot taking out this Kawasaki's Vulcan S. Starting us off then in the engine department, this is Kawasaki's 650cc engine, producing 62 brake horsepower and 50 newton meters of torque, which obviously means this bike is A2 compliant. Nice to see yet another bike that is A2 compliant straight out the factory door. I'm going to do a little stint on the dual carriageway, and then we'll do some kind of slow town riding and see how this engine fares. This bike doesn't have the biggest engine, and that's kind of what you got to remind yourself when you're riding it. If you want to get a little bit more out of the engine, is you need to use that rev range and kind of hang on those gears longer than you would normally if you were just kind of having a chill ride. This stint of 60, 6th gear, there is some vibrations through the foot pegs, but more importantly there's vibrations through the back end of the seat, which kind of goes up my backside, leading into my lower back. But engine wise, it can easily handle the 60 full throttle, and she does pick up quite nicely in a slow linear manner. If you are going to go do some form of overtaking in 6th gear at 60, you're going to have a long run up, so you'd be better off dropping a couple of gears and then using that rev range like I said earlier. Let's see, when we get on the dual carriageway, am I comfortable sitting at motorway speeds on this bike? Is this really the cruiser long touring distance style bike that Kawasaki kind of sell this as? This bike has gone back to basics with its technology. All that's on here is you've got ABS, you've got your little LCD screen at the bottom, it's clear enough, shows everything I need, and then you have the large rev counter just above it. You've got our indicators, your high beam, your horn, your kill switch, your starter switch, and that is it. Nothing high tech or fancy about this bike, but sometimes that's exactly what you want. This could be a lovely Sunday bike. Go to the garage, turn the key, starts up, you just ride it. Less chance of there being an electronics technical fault. That's what I mean. If you really want to get shifting, this bike can definitely do it. Just got to use that rev range to your advantage. This could definitely do above motorway speeds. And you know what, yes, I'd feel comfortable sitting on the motorway on this bike, although the vibrations on the bum would make it somewhat uncomfortable. With this being a naked bike, this model, there is no fairing, so that means the wind is hitting me nice and clean across my top half. I'm not getting any strange buffeting on my helmet or anything, and that's the kind of the good part of having no wind protection. Also, the bike isn't super powerful and super torquey, which means I'm really trying to hold on. Like it's a smooth engine. When you twist the throttle, you know how the bike's going to react and respond. So actually, it's quite nice and easy to ride this with no screen. This is the base model and the Vulcan S, but there are two others. You've got the Vulcan S Performance, which does have a kind of short, stubby screen. Or you could go for the Vulcan S Tourer, which has got a larger screen. Ergonomics wise, I'm 6'1", and this does have the old forward mounted pegs, which I do find comfortable. I have ridden plenty of cruisers. Sometimes it takes a little bit of muscle memory to kind of remind yourself that the pegs are up there and not below your bum. But they're at a comfortable distance. To change down a gear, you do have to do the typical thing of lifting your foot up to push down on the peg. Handlebars are a kind of a nice comfortable distance from my top half. I'm not reaching for them, but also they're not too close to me that I feel like I can't really steer the bike. Overall, for a man of my size, actually this fits me pretty well. These kind of A roads and B roads, this bike laps it up. 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Handles really nicely. Let's look at the price range of the Vulcan S then. So In the black trim, it's going to set you back £7,450. In the grey trim, £7,650. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there's two other models. So the Vulcan S Performance is going to set you back £8,200, and in that you are going to get that little screen and an exhaust. And then if you want to go for the more expensive, you got the Vulcan S Tourer, and that's going to get the big screen. It's going to get a passenger backrest, and you're going to get the saddlebags. That's going to set you back £8,750. So you can either pick one of those models, or you could get the base one and then look at Kawasaki's parts catalogue and then kind of adjust it and make it your own. Honestly, these are the type of roads where this bike absolutely comes alive. It's not going to be your speed demon on the dual carriageway and the motorways. Told you, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour speed range. This bike is spot on. The throttling is nice and gentle and progressive. The gear changes are nice and smooth. It's a kind of typical Kawasaki engine in this. It just all works very nice together. Had a quick pull over. I changed batteries. Standard GoPro. I'm 6'1", remember. This bike has a seat height of 705, and as you can see, both feet easily flat on the floor. Got a really good bend in the knees as well, and I can even stand straight up. So if you are on the shorter side, you'll be fine. And again, if you are on the shorter side, the foot pegs are adjustable. So at the minute they're in the standard position, but they can go either 25mm forward if you're taller, or if you're shorter, 25mm back towards you. So they've got that little bit of adjustment straight away. So if you feel like you're just reaching and it's just not very comfortable for you, 25mm might be all it needs. Being a parallel twin, Kawasaki's got that fueling spot on. The fuel range on this is going to be pretty good. So we've got a 14 litre tank, so we're going to get in the region of 180 miles. So it's going to be fairly cheap to fill up, cheap to run, and you're going to get a serious amount of miles on this bike per tank. Around town, if there's potholes or anything like that, manholes, this bike flicks really nicely, to the point where you wouldn't realise this bike weighs 229 kilos. Even when you're stationary and you're kind of just moving it around the car park, you can't feel the weight. This bike clearly has a very low centre of gravity, and it works nicely. Like, it just flicks. It flicks a lot better than some of the Harleys I've been on. But those bikes are like 300 odd kilos. A little bit of town riding. Like I said, the fueling on this is spot on. It's a second gear. It's not jolting, it's not jittering, it's just poodled along nicely. When you come on off the throttle, there's no heavy jerking, it doesn't force you forward or back. So this bike will be easy around town. It's got a great turning circle, it feels nice and light, it's agile, it flicks. You can easily get your feet down if you have to come to a quick sudden stop. A roads, B roads, handles it nicely. Motorways, you can do it. It's more than doable. My only biggest gripe, like I said, will be the vibrations, kind of in all those scenarios. That being said, this bike isn't particularly exciting. It's your typical kind of parallel twin from Kawasaki that you expect to just work nicely and seamlessly, and it does. If you're after a bike with a bit of character, not sure this is it. So the only kind of frustrating thing, like I said, going down gears, is you do have to lift your foot up to really get to the lever. You might be able to adjust the lever to kind of push it in a more downward position to make it a little bit easier for you. But obviously this is only a demo bike, so I'm not going to be faffing around like that. The mirrors on this, even though they don't look very nice, proper old school, actually they work very well. My elbows are probably covering a quarter of the glass, and that is it. Sometimes I can barely see behind me, so they may not be the best looking, but they're effective. What's more important? I'll have a little bit of fun in this Nationals. Get that rev range up. That little flowing section there, you can definitely have fun on this bike. I was in 4th gear and I was just using that rev range up and down. Not worried about changing gear, just letting the bike do its thing. Don't forget, being a cruiser style bike, having a seat height of 705, you're going to be limited on your ground clearance left and right, or your lean angle should I say. So at some point you may start hitting the pegs. It's just something to be mindful of. Don't start banking it in like you're on a sports bike. Let's find somewhere to pull over and have a little walk around. Here we are then. As we can tell, this has got kind of a retro classic look to it. You can tell it is a Vulcan from the front of this. Another area Kawasaki kind of saved a little bit of money, I think, is in the suspension and brakes. We do have 41mm telescopic forks. We've got a single disc at the front, 300 at the front and then a 250 at the rear. 2-pot piston at the front and then a single at the rear. So suspension and brakes for me, being a bit of a bigger, heavier onset guy, there's definitely areas of improvement slash when I am riding, just an area that I need to remind myself to kind of take it easy. We do have a low slung muffler exhaust, something to note when you're going around corners. If you do start banking it in too much, you are going to start scraping it kind of along there. I really like the frame on this bike. All that tube work kind of carries on into the rear subsection as well. I think it just looks pretty nice. Let me know what you think. Would you go for this black or would you get the grey trim? For me, I would say this is definitely probably one of the better middleweight cruisers in the market. 7.5 grand, it's not too bad nowadays kind of price range. A lot of the bigger bikes are pushing 20-25 grand, so anything under 10 is a bonus in my eyes. Enough talking, more riding. Well, it turns out I didn't turn my camera on for that last little segment, so let's try all that again. I'd done a little spin around in the car park, nice and slow speed, kind of first gear, full lock, and the turn and circle on this is really tight, which means if you are a newer rider into the game, you're on your A2 license, around town, any kind of turning, this thing is going to be an absolute doddle. Unlike a sports bike which turns like a tractor. These type of back roads with this suspension, the roads are a little bit bumpy, which means I do kind of pogo a little bit on this bike. And I was chatting about the brakes. Single 300mm at the front with the 2-piston pot. For your everyday riding, kind of gentle 30 miles an hour and under, like gentle braking, yeah, you know what, they're not big brakes, but they work plenty, they work well enough kind of on that slower speed. It's just if you're going a bit spirited, 50-60 miles an hour, and a tractor pulls out and you go to pull on this, you just need to remind yourself that you need to pull a little bit harder to kind of get the desired outcome that you want from the brakes. The good thing with suspension and brakes, it's an easy area for the manufacturers to kind of save some money, but then from a customer's perspective, you can easily change the brakes and suspension. Find some aftermarket companies that will do some brake pads, brake discs, lines, thicker oil, bigger forks. There's so many different things that you can do to kind of make the downfalls of this bike non-existent. So even though I'm saying what I'm saying about the brakes and suspension, hey, take it with a pinch of salt. I really enjoy these type of back roads on the smaller bikes like this. You feel like you can use it just a little bit more than if I was on a litre bike or something bigger. That's the kind of good thing with Kawasaki and their engines, and they kind of dialed it in where I'm not saying you can be lazy with the gear changes. I'm saying if you get caught short with the gear changes, then you can be in 3rd gear in a low speed and it will still get you out of trouble. obviously it won't be the quickest. Obviously the LCD screen isn't the biggest, but it does show the gear indicator, and also it's got a fuel gauge. It is nice to see on the cheaper bikes, because me personally, I don't like it when there isn't a fuel gauge. It's just another thing to think about, especially as a new rider. Well, I've enjoyed taking this bike out, and I hope you guys who live in the area of Yeovil will head over there and take this bike out as well. Let me know what you think. If you have enjoyed this video, please not only like the video, but more importantly, subscribe to the channel. More subscribers mean more people watching my video, which means the channel gets to grow. If you want to watch my full riding review on the Honda CMX 500, which is their cruiser equivalent, check out this video here. And if not, until the next video, ride safe.